I was halfway through unwrapping my salami sandwich when I spotted them. Two guys in navy jackets with clipboards loitering near my workstation. One of them was taking photos of my monitor like I'd been running a black market freight ring out of Excel. The other had on latex gloves and was digging through my bottom drawer, the one with exactly 3 things in it: a pack of gum, expired cough drops, and a stress ball shaped like a cow. I didn't panic. I didn't even stop chewing. I just knew. Kara had finally pulled the trigger. I walked over, sandwich still in hand, trying to keep my voice casual. "You boys finding anything exciting?" The taller one straightened up like I'd caught him shoplifting. "Mr. Benton, this is a routine compliance inspection based on recent reports." Yeah, I knew exactly what those reports were and who filed them. I'd been at this company for over 6 years. Never had a single write-up, never missed a quarterly target, never been late. Then Kara transferred to our team 18 months ago, and suddenly I was on the radar for policy inconsistencies and communication protocol violations. You know, like accidentally replying all or not putting a subject line in bold. At first I thought she was just annoyingly thorough. Then I realized she wasn't just reporting me, she was watching me. I looked back at my desk. One of the guys had opened my top drawer and was clicking through my browser history. The other was snapping photos of a spreadsheet I'd left open. "Can I help you find something?" I asked, glancing down at his clipboard. "We're just verifying compliance with documentation and reporting standards," he said, avoiding eye contact. I nodded slowly, my mouth dry despite the sandwich. "You wouldn't happen to know who submitted the reports, would you?" "We're not at liberty to disclose that information," he said quickly. Right, as if I didn't already know. Kara had been building this moment like a prosecutor prepping for a cross-examination. She'd been lurking behind corners, double-checking my numbers, and CCing the boss on minor edits like I was writing company policy, not freight invoices. And now she had finally summoned the cavalry. I walked back to my chair and sat down, watching them from across the desk like it was some kind of wildlife documentary. Predators sniffing for weakness. Kara wasn't at her desk. Of course she wasn't. She wouldn't want to be anywhere near the fallout in case this backfired. She was probably pacing by the copier, pretending to print something she didn't need. Or maybe she was watching from the break room, sipping her usual herbal tea and waiting for me to panic. But I wasn't panicking. Not yet. Because here's the thing. If Kara thought this was the climax of her story, she was dead wrong. This wasn't the end. It wasn't even the middle. This was the cold open. She thought she'd caught me slipping. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that I'd been playing the long game too. So I leaned back in my chair, took another bite of my sandwich, and smiled. Let her watch. Let them all watch. I'd been working at Claremont Logistics for just over 6 years when Kara walked in, all sharp edges and tight smiles. She started a year after me, and from the jump, it was clear she had something to prove. She wasn't rude, not exactly. She was precision crafted. The kind of person who starts a conversation by telling you how refreshing it is to meet someone who isn't obsessed with titles, then makes sure to casually mention she graduated top of her MBA class. At first, I didn't think much of it. People like that pop up in corporate settings all the time. But by her 3rd week, I noticed she'd started CCing our manager, Walsh, on every single one of our email exchanges. Even when we were talking about printer access. That's when I knew she wasn't just competitive, she was tactical. It started small, correcting grammar in emails I'd already sent, asking clarifying questions during meetings that made it sound like I didn't know what I was doing. Once in a team huddle, she asked, "Hey Benton, on that Houston delivery, were we supposed to bill the freight to the secondary vendor or the primary?" It sounded innocent enough, but she knew damn well it was the primary. She just wanted me to hesitate, wanted me to look unsure in front of Walsh. But I didn't bite. I just answered, kept my tone steady, and moved on. That's what pissed her off the most. I didn't engage, I didn't flinch, I just kept doing my job, and doing it well. My numbers were solid, my accounts were steady. Clients liked me. That kind of calm, boring consistency drove someone like Kara absolutely insane. She stopped trying to trip me in public and started tracking me instead. I caught her watching when I logged in each morning, noticed her glancing at the break room clock when I got back from lunch. One afternoon, I passed her desk and saw she had a spreadsheet open titled daily workflows, comparative time logs. Comparative, meaning she wasn't just tracking herself. That was when it hit me. Kara wasn't trying to compete, she was collecting. It wasn't about being better, it was about building a case. The worst part, she didn't even hide it. I once caught her standing outside the print room, scribbling notes on a legal pad while I was on the phone with a vendor, like she was a private investigator trying to crack a case of invoice mismanagement. And so, I made a decision. If she was going to play detective, I'd give her something to investigate. I started planting mistakes. Nothing huge, just enough to get her attention. A duplicated line item on a freight order, an old invoice attached to a new email, wrong ETA in a shipment summary. Then, within a few hours, I'd correct it. Smoothly, quietly, and like clockwork, Kara would bring it up the next day. "Hey Benton, I noticed you revised your numbers from yesterday. Any particular reason for that? Or just curious, was the original invoice date a typo?" Always with that fake cooperative tone, always pretending to help. It was working. She thought she was catching me slipping. She thought she was building a gold mine of evidence. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that the trail she was following wasn't leading to my downfall. It was leading straight into a trap, because if Kara wanted to make a career off documenting my mistakes, I'd make sure those mistakes told a better story than she ever could. I started small, nothing drastic, nothing that would get anyone hurt or delay shipments, just enough to make a certain someone lean in closer. Wrong invoice date. March 15th instead of March 14th. Fixed it a few hours later with a polite correction email to the client. Misfiled report. Marked a bulk freight as delivered before it left the yard. The next morning, I caught the mistake myself and fixed it before anyone else touched it. Quarterly tracker formulas switched from column F to column G, throwing off the margin percentages. It took Kara 40 minutes to catch that one. And when she flagged it to Walsh, I was already sending out an all-team correction with a note that I had fixed it before reports went out. It drove her nuts. She wanted me to be careless, sloppy. She needed that. But every time she thought she had something solid, I'd fix it just in time to make it look like I was conscientious, if slightly flawed. To anyone else, it would seem like I was just juggling too much. But to Kara, it looked like proof, and she loved proof. One Thursday afternoon, I walked past her cubicle on the way to refill my coffee, and I couldn't help but glance down at her screen. She had a folder open on her desktop labeled Benton Work Issues Evidence. No passwords, no subtlety. Just sitting there in 14-point calibri like a declaration of war. I didn't mean to stop walking, but I did. Inside the folder were subfiles by month. I saw screenshots of emails I'd corrected, document version histories, notes with timestamps. She had even screen-snipped my Outlook calendar once. I almost laughed. She had a damn case file, like she was building an HR documentary. That's when I realized, while Kara was busy collecting mistakes, I'd been surrounded by people doing little things that made my job smoother every single day. People I barely noticed because I was too busy being hunted. So I did something unexpected. I started keeping a notebook. Not for the mistakes, for the moments. 3 good things a day. That was the rule I gave myself. I'd write down when dispatch covered for me while I was stuck on a long call, when Alicia brought me a spare charging cable without being asked, when Daniel handed off a frustrated client with a smile and a joke that diffused the whole conversation. No agenda, no formatting. Just a lined notebook from Office Depot and a pen I liked. While Kara was building her case, I was building mine, not for court, but for character. Somewhere along the line, it stopped being about her. I'd leave work and look forward to writing in that notebook. It gave shape to the invisible things, the kindnesses that happened in passing, the stuff you usually forget by the time you reach the parking lot. And as it grew, I noticed something else. Kara's name never showed up. Not once. She never held a door, never offered help, never passed along a kind word or even a neutral one. Her silence in that notebook was louder than anything she could have written in a report. I didn't know it yet, but that journal would become my quiet weapon. Not because I meant it that way, but because it told the truth, the real story. And in a place where every spreadsheet was under scrutiny, sometimes the thing that isn't tracked, the human stuff, that's what reveals everything. Every day before I left work, I wrote down 3 good things. Nothing big, nothing philosophical, just small stuff, real stuff. The kind of moments that happened fast and disappeared if you weren't paying attention. Like when Alex from dispatch stayed late to help reroute a shipment after a snow delay. Or when Shonda dropped by my desk to tell me a client specifically mentioned my name in their satisfaction survey. Or when maintenance fixed the flickering light above my workstation without me ever putting in a request. 3 things a day. That was the rule. I didn't start the notebook with any grand vision. It wasn't some corporate mandated mindfulness thing. I didn't expect anyone to read it. I just needed something to hold on to. Something that reminded me there were still good people around, even if one person was trying to burn everything down behind the scenes. I never wrote long entries, usually just a line or 2, sometimes a name, sometimes a quick sentence. But after a few months, the pages started filling up. It became a routine. Turn off the monitor. Close the laptop. Pull open the second drawer, grab the blue notebook, and write down my 3 things before heading out. That's when I started noticing a pattern. Some names came up a lot. Daniel from billing, always ready to crack a joke when things got tense. Alicia, who never let a client email go unanswered, even when it wasn't her account. Even Walsh, our manager, who once offered to personally drive a late package across town when the courier missed the pickup window. But one name never showed up, not once. Kara. Not because I was avoiding her. I didn't blacklist anyone. If she'd ever done something decent, something even remotely cooperative, I'd have written it down. I wrote down everything else. But there was nothing, just blank space where her name could have been. She never held the elevator, never offered to cover when someone had to leave early, never said thanks when someone helped her, or congratulations when someone got a win. She didn't just avoid kindness, she refused it. I didn't realize it at the time, but that notebook was turning into something else. Not just a record of what I noticed, but a pattern, a map of who made this place work, and who didn't. I didn't keep it to trap anyone. I didn't write it hoping it would ever leave my desk. But that was the thing. It didn't need to be written for revenge to tell the truth, because when compliance came sniffing around my desk months later and asked, "Do you mind if we look through this?" I handed it over without thinking. And in those pages, they didn't just see notes, they saw a workplace, a living, breathing network of people looking out for each other, backups and handoffs and thank yous and trust, and one very obvious absence. Kara's name wasn't just missing, it was erased by default. That's what hit me hardest. I didn't even mean to make a case against her. She made it for me. By never once showing up in the notebook, that wasn't even meant to matter. They found the notebook on a Wednesday. Compliance had already been digging through my desk for about 15 minutes, flipping through old project folders, scanning my email archive, even checking my sticky notes for anything concerning. I'd stayed calm the whole time, just quietly eating the rest of my sandwich and watching them from a chair by the window, like I was waiting for a dentist appointment. Then the shorter guy, Rob, I think, pulled open the second drawer. He flipped through a couple file folders, then paused, pulled out the blue notebook. "What's this?" he asked, turning it over in his hands like it might explode. I glanced up. "Oh, that's just my personal journal. I write in it before I clock out. Notes about the day. It's not company property." "Mind if we look through it?" the taller one asked. I shrugged. "Go ahead." They sat down right there at my desk and started flipping pages slowly. The tone in the room shifted almost immediately. No more clipboard scratching. No more cold professionalism. They got quiet. Rob leaned over to his partner and whispered something. The taller guy nodded. Page after page of names, simple sentences. Alicia brought backup docs without being asked. Client thanked me on the phone for tracking the early shipment. Daniel made a joke during crunch time. Everybody laughed, pressure eased. No flair, just honesty. No accusations, just patterns. And the clearest pattern of all, Kara wasn't in there. Not once. They kept flipping. 10 pages. 15. No mention of her. No moment of support. Not even a footnote. The taller guy finally looked up at me. "You've been writing this every day?" "Every work day, yeah. Just 3 good things. Helps me end the day on a high note." He nodded slowly. This is pretty unusual. Yeah, I guess it is, I said. But it's honest. They glanced at each other again, then Rob stood up, notebook still in hand. Excuse us a moment. They left my cubicle and made their way toward the glass-walled conference room in the corner. Kara was already there, pretending to print something for the fourth time in 15 minutes. She tried not to look at them as they passed, but I could see her spine straighten. She was waiting for her win. I leaned back in my chair. A minute passed, then 2. After 20 minutes, they called her in. They didn't come out for another 45. When she finally reappeared, Kara looked like she'd swallowed a thumbtack. Her cheeks were red, lips tight, jaw clenched hard enough to crack enamel. She didn't look at me, didn't look at anyone, just went back to her desk, sat down, and stared at her screen like it had insulted her. Nobody said a word, but everyone saw it. Something had changed because this wasn't about me anymore. Not really. The journal didn't just prove I wasn't toxic. It showed what a healthy workplace looked like and how she'd been a ghost in the middle of it. She'd tried to put a spotlight on me, but that light had turned, slow and steady, and landed squarely on her. And unlike my notebook, she didn't have a single thing to show for it. Kara came in the next morning like a ghost version of herself, hair in a neat ponytail, crisp blouse. No coffee mug with one of her passive-aggressive slogans like, "Some of us bring the whole team with us." Just her, quiet, polite, reserved. She nodded at me as she passed my desk. I blinked. That was new? For about a day and a half, she kept it up. Smiled when she walked into the office, asked Alicia how her weekend was, even complimented Daniel's new shoes. Daniel told me later he almost dropped his yogurt. It would have been impressive if it hadn't been so transparent. Kara didn't do friendly. She did strategic. At first, I figured maybe she realized the game was over. Maybe compliance had put a warning in her file. Maybe she actually felt embarrassed. But by day 3, the mask slipped. Daniel from billing stopped by my desk just before lunch. "Hey, you know she's asking around about your notebook, right?" I looked up. "What do you mean?" She cornered me by the copier, said she was concerned about company privacy. Asked if I thought it was weird that you've been documenting what people do. I leaned back in my chair. Of course, she couldn't win through truth, so now she was trying to twist it into something ugly. By the end of the day, 3 other people had mentioned similar run-ins. Kara had started whispering about ethics, privacy. She said my journal could be used against people, said I was keeping files, that I was tracking behavior. She even implied I was building a legal case, like I was some HR mole in disguise. None of that was true, and she knew it. But facts didn't matter to Kara. Only perception did. I wasn't angry, just exhausted. After everything, she still couldn't sit with the idea of losing. She couldn't let go. She had to poison the well on her way out. That's when I realized I needed to beat her at her own game, but in full view. No whispers, no backroom narratives, no tactics. Just the truth. Plain and open. The next morning, I started drafting an email. I didn't name her. I didn't even reference what had happened. I just explained my journal, why I started it, what it meant to me, and what I did with it. I wrote, "Every day before I leave, I write down 3 good things that happened at work. It's a personal habit. Not for performance tracking, not for management, just moments that remind me this place is full of people who care. If you've ever been in that notebook, it's because you made a difference to someone, and that matters. If, for any reason, you'd prefer not to be included in my notes going forward, just let me know. No questions asked. Simple, transparent, unthreatening. I hit send to the entire department, then I waited. And that was the last moment Kara had any control left. Because once the truth was out there, undeniable, human, and sincere, there was nothing left for her to twist. She couldn't win in the shadows anymore. And the spotlight? It wasn't kind to her. Monday morning, I hit send. The email wasn't flashy. No bold fonts, no dramatic subject line. Just a quiet message to the entire department with a simple explanation. I wrote, "Hi all. Over the past year, I've kept a personal journal where I jot down 3 positive things that happen at work each day. Sometimes it's someone covering for a call. Sometimes it's a kind word, a problem solved, a small gesture that made the day better. It's not part of any company review process. It's just a personal habit that helps me stay grounded. That said, if anyone prefers not to be included in that kind of journaling, even anonymously, I completely understand. Just let me know, and I'll respect that fully. Thanks, Benton. That was it. I closed my inbox and went to grab coffee, half expecting the usual digital silence. But by the time I got back to my desk, I already had 7 replies. Then 13. By lunch, the count was well over 30. Alicia wrote, "This is honestly the most thoughtful thing I've seen since I started here. Count me in." Daniel replied, "You've mentioned me? Dude, I'm honored. Also, I've started doing this on sticky notes now. My desk is going to look like a sunflower exploded." Even Walsh, our no-nonsense manager, responded with, "I didn't know this was happening. I'm glad it is. Let me know if I can support this somehow." It snowballed. People asked for tips on starting their own gratitude logs. Some asked if I'd ever consider sharing anonymized highlights during team meetings. One person, I still don't know who, printed out a quote from the email and pinned it to the break room bulletin board. 3 good things a day. It's more than most meetings accomplish. By 4 p.m., I had 64 emails. Not a single opt-out, except one person didn't respond at all. Kara, she didn't even acknowledge the message. I passed her in the hallway that afternoon and gave her a polite nod. She looked through me like I was part of the wall, but I didn't need her response to know what she thought. She'd tried to weaponize my journal, tried to paint it as manipulative, and now the very thing she used to discredit me had built a movement. People were lifting each other up, out loud, in meetings, at desks, on post-its and Teams, messages and shared email threads. The culture shifted, just a little, but noticeably. There was a new kind of energy humming through the office. Not fake, not forced, just decent. Meanwhile, Kara, she stood out like mold on clean glass. She tried to gossip, but nobody bit. Tried to inject her usual criticism into Slack threads, but people ignored her. Where she once slipped between departments spreading tension, now she was just quiet. And for once, that quiet didn't belong to me. It belonged to her. Something changed after that email. It didn't happen overnight, but you could feel it, like the thermostat in the office clicked one notch toward warm. Small things. Notes left on keyboards. Post-its that said, "You killed it on that client call," or "Thanks for catching that tracking error." Daniel started showing up with donuts every Friday and leaving a little folded paper next to the box that read, "For all the quiet heroes, take 2. Walsh kicked off the next staff meeting by doing a rapid-fire shout-out round. One by one, people started lifting each other up out loud. Alicia got a round of applause for handling a furious client with grace. Javier was thanked for helping 3 different teams get their shipment squared away on time. Even Alan, the quiet guy from IT, got mentioned for fixing someone's monitor before they even logged a ticket. People didn't roll their eyes, they smiled. I saw coworkers hold elevators for each other, saw folks share chargers, offer help unprompted, bring each other snacks from the break room. You'd think it would be cheesy or awkward, but it wasn't. It was natural. Like we'd been waiting for permission to be decent, and someone had finally turned the key. And Kara, well, she didn't shift with the rest of us. At first she tried, kind of. She started dropping weird, out-of-place compliments in conversation. Told Daniel his new glasses were fine for his face shape. Told Alicia she had a confident walk. No one knew what to say. Then she started writing her own version of a gratitude log. That's what she called it, loudly, in the break room. She said it was a data-driven empathy project. She carried around a fake leather planner and announced her entries like someone reading a court transcript. Noted, Javier replaced the toner. Grateful. It flopped hard. People didn't respond. They didn't laugh. They just moved on. Because the thing is, you can't fake sincerity in a room that's learned how to spot the real thing. She kept showing up, trying new angles. Asked someone if they wanted to collaborate on a kindness workflow model. Asked Walsh if she could lead a team training about positive accountability. Nobody bit. And every time someone left a real note on someone's desk, or passed along a quiet compliment, or got recognized in the meeting, Kara just looked more out of place, like she was speaking a language nobody else wanted to learn. The spotlight she tried to turn on me, it had shifted. It wasn't burning me anymore. It was burning her. Because in a culture where appreciation is the currency, you can't fake generosity. You either give or you don't. And Kara, she never really had anything to give. 3 weeks after the compliance guys rifled through my desk, Walsh called me into his office. I figured it was a routine check-in. Maybe he wanted to go over the West Coast roading issue we'd been chasing. But when I stepped into the glass-walled room, he didn't have any spreadsheets open, no shipping manifests, just a closed laptop and a notepad with my name scribbled at the top. "Shut the door for me?" he said. That was new. I sat across from him, bracing for whatever it was. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, hands clasped behind his head like he was still piecing it all together. "I wanted to let you know," he started. "Kara's been reassigned." I blinked. "Reassigned?" He nodded. "Different department. Project evaluation and audit review. Mostly solo work. No direct reports, no team management." I just sat there. "She's still with the company," he added, "but it's a very different role now, focused on internal policy documentation. Translation: file reports quietly and stay out of everyone's way." He picked up the notepad and tapped his pen against it. "We did a full review. Her complaints about you, about your performance, most of it didn't hold water, and once the compliance team looked at everything, including that journal, they saw what we've all been seeing." I stayed quiet. Let him talk. "Your notes," he said, "weren't just uplifting, they were revealing, consistent. There was a whole map of who made this place better and how." He paused. "And who didn't?" I shifted in my seat, unsure what to say. I hadn't written that thing to start an investigation. I just needed somewhere to put the good parts of each day so they didn't get buried under all the noise. Walsh must have read my silence. "You didn't mean for it to be that, I know, but it showed us something Kara's reports never could. Real contribution, not metrics, not fake collaboration, actual character." He leaned forward. "You showed us what healthy looks like." That stuck with me. Not competent, not efficient, not productive. Healthy. "And the morale," he continued, flipping to a different page in his notebook. "I've been doing this a long time, Benton. Teams don't shift like this on accident, and something about that journal pulled people into alignment. People started seeing each other, and once they did, they didn't want to go back." I exhaled, finally letting myself feel the full weight of it. Kara hadn't just lost her little campaign against me, she'd lost the room. No one cared about her quiet promotions or her spreadsheet obsession anymore. She could send as many weekly updates as she wanted in her new department, but here, the temperature had changed, and she wasn't invited to the climate. Before I left his office, Walsh stood up, held out his hand, and said, "You didn't play dirty, you just told the truth, and let people notice what mattered." I shook his hand, and for the first time in a long while, I walked out of a meeting feeling like I hadn't just survived something. I'd changed it. A couple months later, word got around Kara had requested a transfer, out of state. She was going to some branch office in Ohio, I think. Something about streamlining remote processes. No team meetings, no direct collaboration, just a laptop and a list of policies to audit. Some said she wanted a clean slate. Others said she just couldn't stand the silence anymore. I didn't gloat. I didn't even feel satisfied, not in the way I thought I might when all this first started. I didn't wish her harm. I just wished her peace. Maybe if she found it, she'd finally stop swinging at people who weren't trying to fight. The journal's still in my drawer. I still write in it every evening. Same 3 things, sometimes more if the day's been especially decent. It's no longer about strategy. It's not a shield or a defense or even a habit. It's just mine. A map, really. A quiet compass that shows where the good people are. The ones who show up when it's inconvenient. Who send the late email that saves a deadline. Who refill the coffee when no one's looking. Who say thank you like they mean it. Some fights don't need yelling. Some victories aren't loud. I never raised my voice once through all of this. Never sent an angry email. Never slammed a door. My revenge wasn't punishment, it was exposure. I didn't destroy her. I just stood still while the truth revealed itself, and in the end, that was louder than anything I could have said. Kara couldn't survive in a world that noticed kindness because she didn't know how to give it. And now we have a team that does, a real one, a messy, human, surprisingly warm little ecosystem where people actually look up from their screens when someone says, "Hey, thanks for helping with that earlier." That's more powerful than anything I planned. It's not perfect, it never will be. But every day, it's a little better, and that's enough.